2002 is a massive year for you.
Just having to turn off your life support for your brother.
The industry, horse racing, it's got its critics.
Pretty special to be part of history with her winning her first Melbourne Cup.
Classic jockey pranks you guys would pull on each other in the jockey rooms.
Look, that was a regretful part of my career and life.
Do you think horses are like trying to beat each other, or are they just out there having a good time?
Now, very rarely are we graced with such high-quality sporting talent
Prestige.
in the BackChat studio, but we are today, powered by Fleet Network. We are joined by the great man himself, Damien Oliver. How are you, mate?
I'm well. Thanks for having us on, guys.
Mate,
Anytime.
It is a pleasure. I mean, yes, you've been a great jockey. We know that, but you're a big West Coast man as well, so that gives you extra credit. So I will say that. The first question we ask every guest that sits in that chair right there, Damien, is we know you've been a great jockey, right? You've ridden 3,168 winners. 129 of those have been in Group 1s. So you've been able to ride some horses. We know that.
Decent.
Right? Melbourne Cups, Schofield Cups, Cox Plates. You may well have done it all. Not many people we can say you may well have done it all. You may well have done it all as a jockey. But we would like to know your greatest sporting achievement, not on the racing track. And you've been doing this for a bloody long time, mate. So we can go as rogue as you like here. I myself, I'm an under 9 80-metre hurdle champion. I could jump over some small wooden things back in the day. Dan Const here, cricket player from back in the day.
5 for 16 in a grand final.
We've had poker players, darts players, high jumpers, javelin throwers. We've had pigeon trainers.
Yep.
We've had, oh, look, I don't know how much more I can give you here, but I want to know your greatest sporting achievement, not on the racing track. And this is one I'm actually looking forward to because you've been riding horses for a long time.
Okay, righto. So I don't know if I can match any of those. Done okay. I like my sport. I was, I reckon, under 13 Byford Roos, fairest and best.
Really?
Great.
My junior footy career was going all right till I stopped growing and everyone else kept growing.
Dan,
I understand.
yep.
So when I was about 13, I thought I'd better look for another career. Pretty early for a career choice, but turned out all right for me.
Yeah. That's bloody
I've had a hole-in-one at golf, so something.
Well done. Where?
Almost had a hole-in-one at Pebble Beach recently, actually, too. That would have been a great place to have one.
Tell us about the hole-in-one. Where was it?
My hole-in-one was at Keysborough in Melbourne on the 8th hole, about 130 metres. Yeah, so
did you carry on?
Pretty cool. Yeah, I did actually. Closed out the match and it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, just celebrate harder, winning Melbourne Cups or a hole-in-one?
Oh, no, definitely Melbourne Cup.
Okay. I was hoping you dropped a hole-in-one there.
We've had some sporting people come in and say, like, there's been a couple of hole-in-ones recently where they've said, like, that's better than anything they've ever done, even in their chosen profession. It's a big deal. Well done.
So looking forward to this one. Dan and I are going to take you through a bit of your sporting career, mate. Now, I want to go back all the way to the start. You're a West Australian boy. You grew up here in WA. What's life like growing up? So you're a footy player. You're a sporting kid growing up, sporting family?
Yeah, love my footy. Growing up, footy, BMX, and probably surfing. I started surfing when I was about 12 as well, so a little bit later surfing, but they're probably my three passions. And I grew up on sort of 10 acres around Byford as well, so yeah, so horses were always around us. Rode horses from a very young age, loved animals. But yeah, footy, surfing and BMX were probably my three sporting passions.
Your old man was a jockey. It's been in your family. Is it something that does that get like, and I don't want to use the word bred, but like bred into you? Is it part of your family, the horse racing?
Yeah, I think so. Being small and growing up around horses, and as you said, my grandfather was a jockey, my brother as well. So yeah, it's always around you and always there in the background. Although, it wasn't full on for me. Footy was probably more exciting for me growing up in BMX and surfing. I loved all those, but the horses were always in the background. And when my brother started having success, a few years older than me, that's kind of what really grabbed my attention into it.
Right.
Were you the one guy at school that had horses, or in that area were the other guys that had them?
Yeah, there was probably a few, but not a lot. Yeah.
You were just did they come over to, like, friends come over to play with your PlayStation and stuff when you were a kid? Do they come over to play with the horses?
Not really. No, I'd sort of go, well, my friends and play footy or go riding our bikes or go for a surf. But I had, obviously, my brother and my stepbrother, we'd have pony races as kids, and yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Can you remember the first time you jumped on a horse? Like, remember the feeling, one, was it, gee, I'm good at this, or was it just enjoyable?
You never start out good as a horse rider.
Right.
It's something you got to work at. I remember I wasn't allowed to have a saddle till I could get good riding bareback, and I think that was a good thing. Made you really grip on and learn how to ride, be part of the horse.
Huh.
And then once I mastered that, then you get a saddle. I started riding track work when I was about 7 or 8. I actually recently saw a photo of me when I was, maybe 1 or not even 2 on a horse. My father holding me on it. So, looks like looking at that, maybe I didn't have much choice.
This is completely foreign to me. I've never ridden a horse.
Never ridden a horse.
No, I don't think that's that common, is it?
No, it's fun as.
I'm not saying it's fun or not fun. I've just never ridden.
You should ride a horse. We should.
Your feet are probably touching the ground on a horse. You need a bigger horse, yeah.
I'd be feeling quite sorry for the horse, to be honest. But for me, it's just a completely foreign land and world, the bareback riding so when you start saddling it and you move away as a 16-year-old, so it's something that comes along quite quickly. If you won the under 13s best and fairest in footy, and then as a 16-year-old, you're heading away to race horses. That's a pretty quick transition.
Yeah, so I left school at 15, rode in Perth for about 15 months, and then had pretty good success early. I think when I moved to Melbourne, I'd ridden 66 winners and 22 in town. So good experience really quickly and got going, but, didn't start off straight in town. Like I was going to places Leonora, Dongra, Collie, all those sort of bush tracks, but they were good to cut your teeth and learn and without too much spotlight on you. But it happened pretty quickly for me. I suppose riding from a young age really helped, and coming from a racing background, that I started to pick it up pretty quickly.
Do you remember your first win?
Yep, at Bunbury, a horse called Mr. Gudbod. It was about 70-1, and
70-1.
Yeah, my brother got me the ride. He couldn't win on it, but I won on it. And,
That's good.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So this is one I had for a little later, but I think it's probably relevant there. These outsider horses that win, right? And I'm sure you've ridden some, given the amount of horses you've won with. How do these horses go from such large odds and no one giving them a chance to winning? How much is it jockey? How much is it horse?
Well, it's usually based on form. I don't think that horse, obviously being 7-1, wouldn't have had much form on it, but might have just liked going for a young kid that probably didn't know what he was doing at the time. Sometimes the horse feels like they're taking control of the rider, and some horses thrive on that. Other times you need a horse that needs standing over by a jockey to get the best out of it, kind of thing. So it's not an exact science all the time.
Can you remember the biggest outsider you ever rode?
I think I won on, well, I'm sure there's plenty, but I did win on 100-1 pop at Flemington one time, and it was actually made news at the time because I don't usually ride horses at those odds, But it was an outsider, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
100-1.
no one gives you a chance. That's what that tells me. Like no one backing it. No one. Do the owners, do the trainers? Are you getting on an outsider? It doesn't have to be that one, but when you're on favourites, is it a different conversation when you're on ones that maybe don't have as much of a chance? Is it sort of go for your life kind of thing?
I suppose you can't really compare it to your sport, but when you're on a favourite, there's more pressure and more expectation for you to succeed, and sometimes when you're on an outsider, there's not the expectation or the pressure, so you go out there a bit more relaxed and maybe just let it happen rather than trying to make it happen. Sometimes. So I mean, the horse has still got to have the ability or have the right run in the race to get the result, and the reason they're that odds because they're not fancied or they're a bit out of form. But yeah, it can happen sometimes. If the favourite got up every time, it wouldn't be boring, but it just wouldn't work. So there's different circumstances all the time.
How do you pick a horse? Like, do people come to you and say, we'd like you to ride a certain horse, and then you decide whether or not you want to do that? Yeah,
so I have a manager, and he sort of chases the rides a bit for me, but we work together. Certain stables I kind of train for in the mornings to build up the relationship and get used to the horses, that kind of way. And then there's other rides I'll just pick up on a weekly basis kind of thing. But, it's kind of his job to work out the races I don't have rides in and then chase the best rides he can possibly get after that. But, there's generally jockeys are working for stables and riding the horses that they're training on.
That would have changed a little bit across your journey. I mean, we're talking in the 80s still, mate. I don't think I'm born when you went over for your apprenticeship. That system and your quality as a jockey, like you would have, it's a hell of a journey, 30 years almost. When you're first getting on horses, you're probably just taking what you can get, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely, at the start. And I was chasing my own rides. Managers probably didn't start to come into it, I would say, till mid to late 90s, something like that. And then it's just developed from there because, I mean, obviously in Melbourne there's racing 24/7, 7 days a week, and night times sometimes a lot during the summer now too. So you need someone to manage that for you, so you can just focus on your riding.
So when you moved from WA to Melbourne, 1988, you start your apprenticeship. One of the guys, Lee Friedman, big name in horse racing. What's that like? Because you're still under 18 when you move over there.
Yeah, so my brother had been over to the Freedmans a few years earlier than me, but he was flying in Perth at the time, but just sort of struggled going to Melbourne and adapting and missed home a bit.
Right.
But he laid the platform for me to go a few years later, and the Freedmans had really grown as a stable. They weren't as big as obviously what they became, but they were probably, that 5th to 10 sort of trainer in Melbourne, and we just grew at the same time. They gave me great opportunity, and we just really hit it off and got going. Yeah.
What's an apprenticeship look like for a jockey? Is it?
It's hard work.
Yeah.
Back in those days, you'd be working pretty much 7 days a week, get every second Sunday off. And you're mucking out the stables. You're starting at 4 a.m. in the morning,
Right.
and then riding track work. You work from probably 4 till 9 in the mornings, and then back in the afternoons from sort of 2 to 4. And then you're racing most days. So yeah, it's pretty full on.
How much of it is riding then? Is it like a lot of maintenance of stables and stuff like that you have to do?
Yeah, so you go out 4 o'clock in the morning, you muck out a few stables, start riding, so say from 5 to 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then back to the stables and cleaning up and dressing the horses, grooming them. And then the afternoons, you're feeding, watering the horses, mucking out their boxes and taking for a walk, that kind of way.
Did it almost never get going, your career then? That doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
Oh, it's hard labour at the start, don't get me wrong, and you're doing all the shit work, don't you?
Yeah.
I remember my first wage, and I was apprenticed to my stepfather, I was getting $120 a week, $80 was taken out of board, and you just get $40. So, but you just be working, so you never really spent. You got everything was taken care of, your food and all that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you're just out of school, so you're not really, you're just learning to ride and get going, and obviously, you're looking to get going and be successful. You want to be successful, otherwise you don't want to be doing that the rest of your life.
Was your brother someone was he a mentor to you in the jockey space? Like, as you're growing up, trying to figure it out, it's not something you can just go and do. You'd have to watch people. Is there someone that was a senior figure that you really modelled your game?
Yeah,
on?
lots. I'd always watch the best in the room, the jockey's room, and try and pick a little bit from each one, But then you still got to feel comfortable on the horse yourself, mould your own style. But I'd be watching them tactically, how they rode them out, how they prepared, all that sort of things. Obviously my brother was a big help. He was, a lot of sibling rivalry as what brothers do, and he'd be hard on me. So probably made me the competitive person I am. And then obviously blokes like Rod Kemp was a legend in WA at the time, so I watched him a lot. Blokes like Stephen Miller, Mark Sestich. JJ Miller was probably at the end of his career, but, and even when I got to Melbourne, then I'd watch all the best over there, and from Sydney as well. So you're always constantly learning, trying to get better.
You were just talking about the jockey room. What's that like? Is it just like an open room where everyone's sort of waiting to get on the horse?
Yeah, you all sit around, a room, and you got your gear there, and there's a lot of a lot of fun goes during the day, and like taking the piss out of each other.
Because you're riding like multiple horses through a race day, right? You're not just there to race one horse.
Yep, you're there all afternoon, and there's a lot of byplays that go on during the day, and it's strange, because like in a club room or footy change room, you're all together and you go and compete with one another, for one another. Or here you're then there together, but you go compete against one another. So it's quite strange.
Are there like classic jockey pranks you guys would pull on each other in the jockey rooms?
Oh yeah, there's a good one. Like right, obviously in the showers late, and you can, someone will stand up the end of the shower and get pour a bottle of Gatorade, and will come running down the shower, that kind of way.
Classic.
Yeah, and there's a couple of guys that well known in jockey ranks. Doesn't happen much here, but a bit more overseas. They'll actually make themselves sick to lose weight. It's called flipping, and you'll see some guys that want to do it, and we just put boots in the toilets, so they go to flip, and it looks like all the toilets are taken, and you see them running around. They don't know what to do. They're stressing. Yeah.
That's very good. Does it ever get? I'm assuming it does, given what's at stake. I mean, there would be the lighthearted, bit of banter, competitiveness, but it would go to the top level, right? You guys are at the highest level in your sport, and you're racing for a lot of money involved in the industry, but your jobs are on the line. If you race well, don't race well. Does it get to I don't want to say physical, but is the chat in there sometimes quite serious?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you see the odd blue, not that much, but you not only got to think of that. Also, it's dangerous. I mean, it's only sport I know that an ambulance follows you around when you go to work. So you can push the boundaries a bit, but you got to be a little bit careful. And it's changed along from when I started to where it is now. How much safety awareness and that kind of thing is there.
Do you remember any big clashes in that jockey room?
I've seen a few blues. Yeah, I have.
You've been involved in anything?
Not sure if I ever come to blues, but I've certainly had a few heated arguments. That's for sure. Yeah.
What sort of things would they argue about? Like,
just if someone sort of cut someone off, or right. Worst result is someone could cause a fall, but obviously those guys generally aren't in there to fight it out, so to speak. Yeah. So
it's like road rage. Like usually you're just in your own car and then they just drive. You get annoyed, but like you're in this room with people that are potentially driving dangerously next to you.
Dan's a bit of a road rager. That's why he's speaking.
I started to get on the horn.
There's no horns in horse racing.
No.
To yell.
Yeah.
1991, you're on your first Melbourne Cup. Do you remember that?
Was that my first? 91, was it? I thought it might have been before that, actually.
Well, you probably would know better than me.
I know it didn't end well, my first Melbourne Cup.
Really?
I fell off, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, but I thought it was before that. I was thinking maybe 89 or 90.
No, you could be. Well, mate, you could be right.
Have you got the horse's name?
Grooming.
No, that was my first. Salus Opera was my first. Yeah.
Right.
So I reckon
and you
I had
fell off.
one or two. Yeah, well, actually, a jockey fell in front of me. Richard Jolly is a jockey now, trainer in Adelaide. It was a Perth Cup winner, Saratov. I remember it well. And he fell in front of me, was hanging on the side of it. I think I'm going to get around him. Next thing, he let go of the reins, and my horse tripped over him. So,
bloody hell.
Yeah, I fell. Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Did you get hurt?
No, I was okay. I got up. Yeah. I remember talking to the ambulance guy, and I said, "Oh, who won?" They said, "Oh, terrific." And that was a Freedman horse, and I was apprenticed to him. I said, "Oh, bullshit." I thought I was concussed, And then Superimposed ran second. They Cornelled it. So
wow, really?
They were all celebrating. I was flat as a pancake. I can tell you. Yeah.
It doesn't take you too long to start tasting success, and Group 1 winners, that sort of stuff. Does the Group 1 wins, are they, for people that aren't racing fans that just love their sport, where does that stand, sort of right in Group 1 winner? Is that the pinnacle?
Pretty much. I mean, there's different types of Group 1s. Obviously, you got your Melbourne Cup, and you kind of got a standard Group 1. But winning a Group 1 is what every jockey wants to do, because you become that Group 1 winner, then it starts to open doors up for you, get better rides, and people know that you can deliver on the big occasion, so to speak. So, it certainly gets you going.
How much of that jockey skill do you learn on the job? Like, and comparing it to footy, because it's all I've ever known. Training, and you can train as hard as you like, and prepare as hard as you like, but a lot of your, good to great happens on the field in a match simulation, but more than likely in a match. Is that what it's like for jockeys and racing?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's building experience. Generally good to start off out the country to build your experience and also build your connections, your relationships with trainers and owners. And then obviously you start riding winners, and you'll edge closer to town and with a bit more experience and a bit more success, and then it just grows from there.
It's an interesting concept for mine, because I think that what you guys do and coming around a corner into the home straight, it'd be difficult to replicate at training. That sort of in a big group of horses like that.
Yeah, well, they have what they call barrier trials. So they're kind of like a training exercise where they get the horses fit, get them experience, not for prize money, but it's usually on the training tracks or some of the race tracks, and they're usually, at least once or twice a week. So that's where a young jockey starts off, getting their experience. They've got to have a certain amount of those before they can get their license to ride in a race.
As a young jockey, was there moments that really eye-opening to you, whether it be good, bad, indifferent, learning things, think something you could remember that you thought, wow, like I don't really know what I'm doing here, or that's a bit of a wake up?
Oh, for sure. I mean, going from trials to races, big difference. I suppose a bit like you playing a practice match to a proper match. It just goes up another level. They ride a lot tighter. The tactics come into it more stop-start in a race, so you've got to have a lot more awareness about you, and obviously it's higher stakes too. So it's a lot more competitive.
1995, you won your first Melbourne Cup. What's that like?
Amazing, yeah. Life-changing experience. I'd run second the year before. So to win it the following year, it was from a kid coming from Perth. Your first dream to ride in the Melbourne Cup after doing that for a little while, then, you want to try and win one. So to win it was pretty amazing.
So what allows you to do that? Because you've ridden 3 and you've been riding for 30 years. So that tells me it's bloody hard to do.
Yeah. Look, I think, it's a handicap. So the horses' weights range from, say, 58 down to 50 kilos. And there's usually only a handful or so, probably above 54 to 58. So the majority of horses have got the lighter weight. So you need to be able to ride pretty light. You also need to be getting on the right horses, because usually in a Melbourne Cup, I generally think there's around 8 winning chances out of the 24. So that narrows it down again. And you've got to be riding for good stables that got good horses in the race, and then be lucky enough to get yourself in a position to get on one of those good chances.
Get a good race, like a race that goes well, because there's a lot of things can go wrong
Yeah,
as well, right?
absolutely, especially with that many runners, yeah.
Why is Melbourne Cup so big, like prestigious?
I think it's the history of the race, the prize money, obviously, the prestige of it. It's just, well, you guys don't follow racing, but you know how big the Melbourne Cup is. It's a race that stops a nation. So it's probably the race that not everyone in racing really stops and takes notice of. But there's a lot of other big races in racing that the racing fraternity are just as well aware of. But that's a race that everyone knows about.
What was the jockey get for winning the Melbourne Cup?
So you get 5% of the prize money automatically,
Okay,
and if you've got a generous owner, he might give you a little bonus as well.
Yeah, right. Do you get a medal? Do you get a
cup. You get a replica cup, which is about half size of the Melbourne Cup. Yeah.
How old were you when it was? Who did you ride on?
Doremus,
Yeah,
my first
Doremus,
one.
right?
Yeah.
How old were you?
23.
It's pretty young. You had nice long hair there. I watched it.
Yeah. And them days have passed me by now.
Same, mate.
We all had a bit of long hair one day. I know, yeah.
What's Can you tell us what it's like waiting in the barriers at the start there? Like, it's Melbourne Cup and the crowd is going crazy. Like, can you explain what that sort of feels like?
There's a big build up to it. It's not much. There's no other race quite like it, really, because the weeks lead up to it are pretty big. Then the day itself, there's 100,000 there, and getting out on the track, there's plenty of enthusiastic punters there giving you lots of advice. Usually, had plenty of influence underneath them as well. So, and then going down to the start, it's huge anticipation to it. And but once the gates open, I'm always a little nervous before the race. I don't think it's not a bad thing if you're not nervous, and it doesn't mean anything, doesn't mean enough to you, I don't reckon. But as long as they don't overcome you, and, once you get into the race, then I find I get a bit more relaxed, and then just sort of your instincts take over a bit more.
When you get into the race, tell us what that feels like. What does that sound like? I always, as someone who's been in the races, it sounds loud. As a jockey, is it loud, or are you focused, you zoned in?
Yeah, it is quite loud with the noise of the thundering hooves, so to speak, yeah, especially in a big field like that.
Do you boys talk while you're racing?
Yeah, there's a bit of talk. Longer race or a bit more low-key a race, you might have more of a chat sort of thing, But in a big race, not a lot of chat, more just asking for room or get out of my way or that kind of thing, Yeah.
What are you chatting about in casual races? I can't imagine just having a conversation on top of a horse.
Yeah, but like footy, I would stand next to my opponent and talk, and
I suppose
same thing. Probably not in a grand final, but but during the year,
I suppose.
How's your spaghetti last night? Was it pretty good?
Yeah, if you're back in the field, you might be racing someone home for a slab or something like that, so you can finish a little bit closer.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Can you remember specific moments throughout your career? Like it's been such a long one. Can you remember specific races? Can you remember? Or is it just the big ones? Is there?
Yeah, look, obviously the big ones stand out. Yeah. But if you called out a race, you remember some more than others. I asked my wife; she says I've got a shocking memory, but that's a bit selective at times, I think. But some more than others. But over 36 years, you kind of. I've got a good memory for usually useless information more so than useful information, I find.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did your West Coast Eagles fandom to take a little break from horse racing? Does that start as a kid and you just never got off? You followed it through as you moved to Melbourne. You're a big West Coast guy growing up, and
well, I've actually got a little bit of a story to tell here, and you could probably relate to this actually a little bit, being a Geelong man yourself. I started out a West Coast supporter, moved to Melbourne, left I think it was 89. And Mark Bairstow is a distant cousin of mine. So
All right.
he was the only person I knew, him and his wife Bev, in Melbourne. And every second Sunday, Toby used to come and pick me up to go to his place, because the only place I had to go. And he'd have me riding his horse track work. So I said, right, you bugger, I'm going to get you out kicking the footy. So that was kind of my every second Sunday off. And so I actually followed Geelong there for a while, and unfortunately through some of those Geelong West Coast premierships,
89, 92, 94.
which hurt a lot. But then
95.
when Geelong gave Toby the arse, I think it was in about 95, I'm going to say, I came back to West Coast to my roots. So, so that was a difficult time going to those grand finals in 92 and 94 torn. My brother used to just give me absolute grief, but I had some great times with Geelong following them, with, following Toby. They'd get up by a point to get into those grand finals, but they usually buggered when they got into those grand finals. And West Coast was so good in those 90s as well.
You've effectively butchered it.
Haven't I? No, but I've come back and I've had some good times in 2006 and 2018. And
I was going to say, lucky you come back, mate.
Yeah.
Because 89, 92, 94, 95, you saw 4 losing grand finals for
I
Geelong.
know.
Because I know, because I was a Geelong fan.
Yeah,
It was
at least I
brutal.
didn't play in them. That was that could have been worse. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Because you're the number 1 ticket holder for West Coast there through a period, weren't you?
yeah, just in Melbourne. Yeah, so Trevor Nisbet's a good friend and always looked after us. I love going to the games, and you were saying I'd get down to the rooms when I can, and I love it. Yeah, and we've got a good little cohort of West Coast supporters, Damien Lane and Mark Zara over there in Melbourne. So the jockeys' room's pretty strong, West Coast over there.
I was doing a bit of a reading before, and I don't know if it happened in 2006, but I think 2018, you would have had races on the Saturday, but I think you cleared the schedule. Is that right?
I was there, yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to get invited to the president's function up in the grouse room, and I remember Eddie Maguire just sitting just over there. It was so good watching the tears. Wasn't a good start to the first quarter, but when we got those last 2 goals, I was thinking, I had a feeling we were sort of just getting back into it, and it felt like Collingwood were just trying to save the game. We were actually going to win it.
Yeah.
But it was a great game to be at. It was just amazing.
How good you sat near Eddie.
Yeah.
He was filthy.
Look how happy he is. I bloody love that.
What do you get when you're the number 1 ticket holder? Like, do you get a special jacket or something?
No, they just look after you. I go to, I try to go they have the East Coast Eagles functions.
Yeah.
I try to go to some of those and, go to the games when I can. Usually just Sunday games are the main games I can get to. Obviously, usually working on a Saturday, but I'll be able to go to a few more now.
That's bloody good. Now, if we head back to your career, mate, 2002 is a massive year for you. You ride on your second Melbourne Cup winner in media puzzle, but more significant, I think you lose your brother Jason in a horse riding accident, and that happened to your old man when you were 3 years old as well. Can you reflect on that year? How massive that would have been personally?
Yeah, more so that week. It was a terrible feeling. Obviously, my brother had an accident a week before the Cup, and I got a phone call from a friend where it happened, said it doesn't look good. So I got straight on a plane, come to Melbourne. He was in the hospital on life support for a couple of days, and it was just awful turn of events. Just having to turn off your life support for your brother. Terrible thing to have to do.
Have a break, mate. It's good.
Yeah.
It's bloody brutal, that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I was just faced with a decision, whether to ride that horse in the Cup.
Have a break, mate.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. Always
No,
get
no.
emotional.
You're good.
Yeah.
It's look, I think if I can chat through it a little bit, I think that family member stuff when you're an athlete and a sports person, the personal nature of grief and losing someone, especially your brother, it's very separated sometimes between personal and sport. But then when you're so intertwined with it, they become one as well. And given your family's background with horse racing and how hectically involved you are with it all, you feel like, I don't know how you did it, but did it feel like it was something you wanted to do for him? He would have wanted you to do for him that race, because it happened 3 or 4 days before.
Yeah, it was about a week before. So I flew back to Perth, and then I was here for a few days, and sort of back to Melbourne. I think it was on the Monday. So yeah, I had Derby Day on the Saturday, and I was sort of at the peak of my career. So I was flying. I was about, it was 2002, so I was 30. Like obviously I had a lot of commitments. I didn't want to let people down, but then I was sort of worried about what people would think as well. But the main thing that came back to us was that, it was through him that I got the opportunities I did, and great opportunities also. But the main thing, I spoke to my mum about it. If I was sitting at home watching that cup on the couch, he would have been saying, "You bloody idiot, what are you doing?" So wanted to make sure I was, mentally okay to do it. Probably still wasn't at my best, but got through it. I rode Derby Day. I had 8 rides, probably, half of my favourite. I think I run a couple of placings, had a shit day, to be honest. But, a couple were unlucky, a couple things didn't work out, but that can kind of happen. But I was questioning whether I made the right call. But then just had to keep reminding myself that, if I just kept solid to what, the process that all my life, that, things would be okay. So then Cup Day comes around, had about 4 or 5 rides for the Cup, still going shit, hardly ridden a winner. Well, I hadn't ridden a winner at all, maybe a place or two. But that Cup itself just worked out so good. I'm not a great believer of divine intervention, but if there is such a thing, that race just couldn't have worked out any better, and, that horse was never going to lose.
Mate, I could not agree with it anymore. I watched a big part of that, sort of researching it and preparing for this chat, and people who listen to the podcast know sort of I lost my brother not too long ago, Jason, and watching you on that on Media Puzzle, there is no doubt about it that there was 3 of you on. Well, there was 3 involved in winning that race, right? The horse, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You, but Jason's whipping that home as well, mate. Like it was just running better than anything else, like by a long, long way. And like to have that moment must be pretty bloody special, hey?
Yeah, look, at the time I didn't realise how big it'd be, but turned out to be an amazing tribute to him, and I was sort of glad I was able to pull it off.
Yeah, bloody oath, mate.
It's also something that like really resonated with Australia as a whole. Like it was such a inspiring thing. It wasn't just like, oh, a guy rode a horse, and it was like such a, like everyone knew about the circumstance and what he had done, and it's such a special thing that everyone got to watch and see unfold as well. What was the jockey fraternity like around that time, like on the race? Were they looking after you, or letting you sort of keep to yourself a bit?
Yeah, amazing actually. I found sanctuary actually on the horse and on the track, away from all the hype and stuff that was going on outside, which was great for me, because when I got on the horse and inside the rail, it kind of felt like Nirvana for me, to be honest.
What you were meant to be doing, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. And the jockeys were just amazing.
Yeah, because you build such this community and connection with these blokes as well. Like we talk about the, fisticuffs or shit talking and all that, but I mean deep down inside that, when moments like that, you see the true colours of people as well.
Yeah,
and how much people love you in the end.
Yep.
Mate, I really appreciate you speaking about that, and I'm going to probably do my best to just take some deep breaths as well, but we bloody appreciate it, mate. It's bloody unreal, because, yeah, I've got goosebumps thinking about it, but to be able to do that, to have the strength of character, and in the end, I think probably you'd say that that's just what you felt like you needed to do at that time. So Media Puzzle and Jason looking down on you, bloody unreal, mate. 2002 goes by. If we can breathe into the next part of your career, mate, because 2002, you're 15 years into your professional racing career. What year are we now? 2024. You're not even halfway through. you sort of say peak of your powers there. It's not even halfway through your career. At around that time, do you feel like you're gonna be a jockey for a long time? Like, is it you've been a jockey forever, mate, and you've done something that people don't do, which is work in the same job for as long as you can remember. So, do you feel like at that period of time you're like, well, this is just going to keep going on forever?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was probably hard on my mum, losing a husband and a son to it, and people were probably questioning me if I was going to keep going. But it's a bit of a lifestyle or a life. It's a life, I mean, you do it from 15. It's kind of all you know. It's a great living as long as you stay on the horse. It's healthy. You're fit. It's an adrenaline rush. You get well remunerated for doing it. Yet you can make good money. So, and it's a good lifestyle. You travel the world, meet a lot of great people. So yeah, I mean, at that stage, I wasn't really thinking it was time to give it away. I mean, I think it was a couple of years later after that, I had a bad fall myself.
You broke your back.
Yeah, pretty badly actually. I fractured T3 and 4 vertebrae in between my shoulder blades, and I was seriously really close to being paralysed.
Right.
It was like someone hitting me in the middle of the back with a sledgehammer, and I was in hospital, and I was faced with a choice of having a spinal fusion or leaving it, but the fractures were unstable, and so there was still a concern that I could be paralysed. So the doctor recommended that I have a spinal fusion. So I had a spinal fusion from T1 to T6. I had 6 vertebrae fused.
Really?
Yeah. And so that sort of, I had these 2 titanium rods sort of, through 6 vertebrae and 4 screws put in.
Shit.
So that was in there for 12 months, had to stay in. I couldn't ride with it in there. Within a few months, I was probably able to do most activities, but I couldn't ride with it in there because one of the screws were kind of as long as your finger, was resting up against the aorta, the main artery for my heart. Wow. So if I had another accident, it could have been fatal. So I had to wait to 12 months to get that removed when they took it back out, but my spine still remains fused, so I don't have much flexion in those 6 vertebrae. Right. So it's obviously a bit harder on my body to ride after that because you don't get as much flexion through your spine, and so it puts more load on your neck and your lower back as well. Right. But yeah, and that was probably when I did question whether I would ride again after that. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. In that 12 months, I looked at a lot of other different things, but nothing really appealed to me, to be honest. I thought it was just in my best interest to get back in the best shape that I could after I had the metalwork removed. And after doing some rehab again, and I felt pretty good. I thought, well, the next stage is to get on the horse to see if I still want to do it, and I didn't really want to finish on those terms, I was still pretty young, still felt like I had a lot ahead of me. I think a lot of people question whether I would come back or to the level that I was. But yeah, I still feel like I had some unfinished business. So I got going again, got back into it. And then actually only after 6 weeks after coming back, I had another fall.
Wow.
And a really bad looking one. It wasn't as bad injury wise, but a horse had a heart attack on me mid-race about 700 metres out. And it took out 50 metres of running rail. It just went through the running rail. And mind you, this time we had steel and aluminium rails. Now they have plastic because of that fall. And it looked horrendous. It looked like I was brown bread, Wow. But all that came out, it was a fractured hand. I still have a plate in my hand, and I had one of these scars on my face as I ripped my face open. And at that time, I'd done a couple of stints in Japan, and I'd secured a good horse for the Melbourne Cup from Japan. And I knew this horse was coming out. So it put me out for a month. I had a plate in my hand, and I came back a little bit early. Probably should have been 6 weeks, but I wanted to get back within a month, and my hand was still swollen up. I was sort of battling a bit, but I wanted to get into it. So I knew I had this horse for the Cup. And so, yeah, it happened in July, I reckon. So I was back in August, so I missed that month and sort of just wanted to get fit coming up to the Cup. And I don't tell people this story. It gets better. Leading up to that Cup, because I was under the pump a little bit, I got a nasty dose of hemorrhoids.
Wow.
Which is not great for a jockey, I can tell you.
No ways.
When you've got these grapes growing out of your ass. And so I'm under the pump a little bit, but I knew I had this horse for the Cup. And I rode it in the Caulfield Cup, and the grapes aren't getting much better. And the horse got around Caulfield, but just didn't handle the track. He ran about 4th or 5th, but I've never been so confident going into Melbourne Cup. I thought, this horse just wins. Get him to Flemington. He'll love the big track. We get to Flemington, and he's starting one of the favourites, and I'm just thinking he's going to win anyway. So there's so many layers to this story. There's a Japanese jockey riding the other horse. My horse is called Pop Rock. Yeah. The other's called Delta Blues. It's 2006.
Yes.
And the Japanese jockey got lost in the race before, just got completely butchered one. And then they said to me, can you have a word to this Japanese jockey? Through an interpreter because he couldn't speak a word of English. Just tell him, how he should ride it, how the Cup goes. I said, look, there's not much pace in this Cup. We drew pretty close to each other. You go over and lead. I'll follow you over. We should get good runs up on the pace and we'll both get our chance to win. So anyway, we jump away. He jumps well, goes up near the lead. My horse misses a kick, so I'm back in the field, but wasn't panicking. I still thought I could win. Come around the turn, Delta Blues has kicked for home. I come out and I thought, I've just got to chase him down. I win. I'm chasing him down. I'm not quite catching him. I couldn't catch him. I just went down narrowly, and it was frustrating, but I was one of the first jockeys to go to Japan and do some stints there and got them to come out. So it felt like a triumph for me anyway, not winning the Cup. I would love to have won it, but got beat, ran second. I raised his hand, he'd won, and it was it felt great to actually, even though we didn't win, run second. I think I was the most interviewed runner-up Melbourne Cup jockey in history because he couldn't speak a word of English, and everyone kept coming to me for the interview. Yeah,
and you were doing it all with hemorrhoids.
Oh yes, yeah, it wasn't too comfortable. I wasn't bouncing to the trot too much, I can tell you that. Yeah,
that is absolutely cold, mate. In 2008, so 2006, or 2008, you inducted into the Racing Hall of Fame. Was that a pretty special moment?
It was. It felt weird, kind of young, still racing to haven't done it. It was wonderful. Don't get me wrong, and a huge acknowledgement. But I think it's probably something towards the end of your career or post career that you acknowledge and more appreciative of it. Yeah.
2000, not too long after that, they make the Cup. About what we spoke about. There's not too many around that've had movies made after them. I'm happy for you to speak about this sort of as you wish, but how was that process? Was it, did you? Yeah, I guess I don't really know much about the movie industry. I don't know if you would have before you sort of dealt with that either, but there would have been an element of pride, I'm assuming, around what the Cup was about. But
yeah, absolutely. I had a bit of a role behind the scenes as a technical director, helping with the racing scene. So spent a few days with them recording the races. So that was pretty cool to do. I remember chatting with Stephen Curry about it, and
so he played you.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and he said, I can't wait for this movie to bloody end. I don't know how you lose the weight all the time. It was a never-ending movie. He was struggling with the diet and losing the weight all the time. So, and as an actor, as a jockey, he made a pretty good actor. He couldn't ride very well, but I had a good mate of mine was playing his stunt double, and so that was pretty cool to have that. Yeah.
So they're obviously riding real horses, and
well, he kind of just did the mounting yard, walking around the horse sort of stuff, but then the race stuff. A good mate of mine, former jockey. Matthew Allen, Max Allen, he played me as a stunt double. Yeah.
Unreal.
Were you in it at all?
No.
A little cameo?
No, just at the end they crossed to the presentation of the real Cup. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Have you watched it?
I have many times. The strangest part for me was actually I was watching on a plane one time, and obviously it was still pretty emotional. But me sitting there watching, I was with my daughter flying back from Perth to Melbourne one time, and watching everyone else watching it in the plane and seeing them getting emotional, that was quite surreal, actually. Yeah,
watching your life a bit.
Yeah,
yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, especially you got that as something that'll last forever, that'll live beyond you, mate.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah,
which I don't know. Yeah, that's unreal. So that's 2011, 2012. Bit of an interesting year for you. Some controversy, a big ban in the end.
Yep.
I don't know how much you want to speak about that or insight to what went on, but it was, that was certainly something in the middle of your career that's a big block of time you missed there.
Yeah. Look, that was a regretful part of my career in life. I didn't realise it at the time, but it stemmed when I traced back over it. It went back to when I lost my brother. I started, losing that kind of big brother, father figure bit in your life. It was a gap that I was missing. And then I had the fall on top of that, where I broke my back. I was out for sort of 15 months, and I lost my job with the Freedman stable. They replaced me with another jockey. So it was kind of things just mounting up on us sort of thing. And, I had a little bit of trouble with alcohol after that as well. I was binge drinking a little bit. I wasn't drinking all the time, but when I did, I'd do it too much. And it kind of put pressure on my family life, my relationship with my wife as well at the time. So it was just one thing building after another. And it wasn't till I had that issue that I went back and dissected and worked out the trail events that sort of led up to that. And, it was a life-changing experience, because my family is really important to me. And I realised that, I had to change my ways and own the mistake, which I did. I put my hand up that I made a mistake. And, with that, I had to build a lot of bridges, a lot of trust back within the industry. But, it was certainly a learning experience, a very valuable learning experience. And, something while I regretted at the time, it's kind of made me a stronger and better person after it.
So for those listening, I guess that don't know, there was a betting controversy. There was an amount placed on a rival horse. You were then banned for a period of time. Looking through your journey and hearing you speak like that, which is, to be honest, mate, incredibly relatable, I would say, me personally, but people listening along, I think, can definitely understand what you're speaking about there. Looking through your journey, though, moments of big success kind of follow on from hardship or adversity or tragedy, or that there's been, it's a roller coaster. It hasn't been a linear upward curve from 16 years old, or go back to the best and fairest and under 13s. It hasn't been a straight line, has it? Like,
I know, but that's not just me. That's life for people.
Yeah.
I don't make excuses for that.
No.
It is what it is. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. No one goes through life just, going rockets to the top. You're going to hit hurdles and make mistakes and have misfortune, whether it's losing loved ones or making a mistake yourself. But the important thing is taking ownership of it and learning from them, if you can't do that, well, then you're not going to become a better person for it.
You won the Melbourne Cup the year after.
Yeah.
That next year. Was that given you've taken, and it sounds like you've taken ownership of sort of how that came about, it wouldn't have been other people's fault, but was that proving people wrong or proving something yourself that year?
No, not necessarily. I was very fortunate that someone like Gay Waterhouse saw something in me that I was determined to come back and do well and make amends. And I got an opportunity to get on a horse like Fiorente. So, I was very grateful and, proud that I was able to, repay the faith for someone that that backed me, So,
yeah.
and it certainly, because the ability was always there. You don't lose that. Sometimes you might lose the desire, or you might get sidetracked or go off the rails at different points, But as long as you've got the determination, the desire to succeed, and you've got good people around you to help you with that, you can get back to where you were.
Gay Waterhouse was the first female trainer to train a Melbourne Cup winner with you on the back of it. That's pretty special.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, Gay is an icon of the sport and has done so much for the sport of racing, knocking down barriers, incredibly successful, whether it's male or female. She's just been inducted. Well, she's already in the Hall of Fame, but now a legend of the Racing Hall of Fame. So, it's pretty special to be part of history with her winning her first Melbourne Cup.
What's that relationship like between trainers and jockeys?
It can be indifferent at times. Or every relationship is different, but it's really important to have good trust in the relationship on both sides. You have trust in your trainer. The trainer's have trust in the jockey. So it's got to be, if it's strong, then there's more chance of being successful.
How much time are you spending? So, for instance, with that Melbourne Cup winner, how much time are you spending with the horse? like leading up?
Some vary. Sometimes you might ride him for the first time. That horse, I spent a lot of time in training with Gay. So yeah, I actually hadn't ridden that horse in a race prior to that race,
Right.
but done a lot of track work with the horse. So I had a lot of faith in that horse that he could win the Cup.
So then there must be like the relationship with the horse then seems important, but it's not like you have to have had like months with this horse.
It's not essential, but I think it's always an advantage if you've spent some time with the horse. Yeah.
Like a connection,
Yeah.
knowing what triggers to pull,
Yeah,
knowing
absolutely.
how it's feeling.
Yep.
Because that's one thing about the industry that I don't understand the feel that you, as a jockey, you must feel when the horse is on or off or I can get it going a bit here. Like you must be able to sense that. Like
you can sense it, and I think with experience you can. I mean, you watch the replays of them as well, so you've got a little bit of intel there as well. But you're racing against them as well, so a little bit of that. But it's, I suppose, a bit like you playing footy. It's knowing the people around you as well, knowing what their instincts are and what their strengths and weaknesses are as well.
what's it like when the horse goes and properly goes? What's that feeling like? People wouldn't know what it's like.
Yeah,
What's it like?
When nothing better than a horse that's got good acceleration, and it's a good feeling.
Because effectively, again, unless you're on a sort of a front runner that's leading the race, a lot of these horses you're trying to hold them back to give it that kick.
Yeah. You're trying to conserve their energy and time their run.
Yeah.
So it's quite tactical. Yeah.
Do you ever play? This is probably more a question for you, Scott. You ever play that game at Time Zone with the horse racing thing?
Absolutely.
And
I look like the machine is riding me rather than the other way around.
And it's got as you're doing it, like the carrots go down. You're using too much of the energy, and then you have to pull back. Have you ever played that one?
Yeah,
I have played that. Actually, it's a bit of a term the jockeys use. You run out of carrots.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Are you any good at that? Is that realistic?
Well, it's probably close as you could simulate it on a mechanical horse kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bloody good. So yeah, that's your third Melbourne Cup. Haven't been able to replicate it. Like I said, 3 in over 30 years of racing. It must be, those Melbourne Cups must be such a special thing. Do other races rate right up there? Caulfield Cups, Cox Plate?
Yeah, all of those. They call them the majors as the Caulfield Cup, the Cox Plate, Melbourne Cup, and Golden Slipper.
Which you've won them all.
Yep. And the Everest is obviously up there now because it's a huge prize money race, and it's growing a lot in prestige as well.
Did you win that?
Didn't win that. Only had one ride in it, but it's only been going sort of a handful of years. Yeah, it's in
Yes.
Sydney, so a little bit harder to win from Melbourne. Yeah.
This is going to show my lack of knowledge in this industry, but something like the Kentucky Derby, could you jump in and race in that? Like, how different is that?
Yeah, pretty hard from Australia. Obviously, dirt racing, dirt horses,
Yeah,
and
right.
there's not much of a connection between Melbourne and Australia and the US in racing.
Okay.
Did you ride much internationally through the journey?
Yeah, heaps. I spent a summer in Ireland and England in 2000. Ridden a lot in Asia, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, Mauritius. Rode there a little bit. Where else? Dubai, New Zealand, France a little bit, South Africa. So yeah, quite a bit around the world.
Who does it best?
They're all got their strengths, and Australian racing's pretty cool. Asian racing's big, Hong Kong and Japan, and the racing in Europe is pretty strong as well.
Who looks after the jockeys the best?
They're pretty good in Asia, Japan and Hong Kong. I think Dubai's obviously pretty good there.
Yeah.
And pretty good here in Australia too.
Where the money is.
Yeah.
How do jockeys make money?
You get 5% of the prize money, and you get a riding fee, which is about $240 or $50
Right.
per ride.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're severely incentivized to
Yeah.
ride well.
Yep, absolutely. The better you do, the better you get paid.
Your living requires you to win.
Everyone loves a winner, mate. In any way of life, don't they?
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to speak about it at all, but there's the industry, horse racing. It's got its critics.
Yep.
In terms of, I don't know what it stands for, how it's operated. What do you say to that? You've been involved in it a long time. You've probably seen it more than most people.
Yeah.
How have you seen it evolve, and what are your thoughts?
Look, I'll get one thing straight. People in the industry that's involved, trainers, jockeys, vets, anyone, breeders, they love their animals. They get really well treated, better than some people, I would say, They're groomed, fed, watered, get the best of vet care all the time. And I understand, people are getting more removed from horses. Back in the day, everyone had a connection to racing or horses, whether it be someone knew someone that had a horse in the backyard in the stables. It's getting further out from the metropolitan area in all cities of Australia. And, I think we're obviously a more woke society these days than what we were in the past. But racing has such a rich history in Australia, and it's part of the fabric of Australian people. I mean, it employs so many people. I think it's the fourth biggest employer in the country. And yeah, there's the betting side of that as well, but all that, helps a lot of stimulate a lot of the country as well. It's such a big part of Australian way of life. It'd be sad to see it, deteriorate too far.
Yeah.
And I mean, who doesn't love a day out at the races? It's not for everyone. I get that. And if people don't like it, well, then so be it. I've got nothing against them.
Yeah.
But there's such a big, generous, good side of racing that I think a lot of people don't see and don't understand and recognise.
Yeah, it's really well said. And as a jockey, you play a part, but it's a small part. You guys are one thing. There's the horses, there's the trainers, there's the owners, there's the punters.
Yep.
There's the media,
the breeders.
Yeah,
yep.
Like there's a lot of different people that come into this, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yep.
And as jockeys, like, do you feel like sometimes you're the spokespeople somehow because of how involved you are?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. We're some of the jockeys are more high profile than other parts of the industry. We understand. So, and we all love the horses that we ride. So without them, we don't have a life or a lifestyle to lead what we do. So, of course we love what we do.
You're finishing up at the end of this year, maybe. You had a favourite ride across the whole journey, or is there a whole bunch of them?
Oh, there's too many to say one, single out one, but yeah, a lot of good ones over the years.
Everyone's got their favourite, mate, though. So there's always...
not when you've been doing it for 36 years and had that many winners, mate. It's hard to rate them. Yeah.
3,168 winners. That's so crazy. That's just a lot of success.
Yeah,
so
a lot of rides.
It would be hard to pick one.
Yeah, covered one. Probably been across Australia a few times with the distance I've travelled. I reckon on a horse.
Fly's looking all right.
Yeah.
What do you This probably sounds like a stupid question. The horses when they're racing, are they all trying to win? Like, I'm trying to get into the mind of a horse right now.
Okay.
Are they like, oh, I'm just out here like running as fast as I can, or are they like, I'm going to beat you, horse? Like, do you think horses are like trying to beat each other, or are they just out there having a good time?
I'm not about having a good time, but they're competitive animals, and most of them, particularly when they're young, in the first 2 to 3 years of their racing career, they're generally trying pretty hard. Some of it's like anything. Some are a bit lazy than others. And you've got to encourage them a little bit more. And then as they get a bit older, some might get a few more aches and pains like us, and they're not as good as what they were when they were a bit younger. So, it changes all the way through.
To put a big bow on the whole thing, mate, how do you look back on your racing career? What really pulls at you?
Oh, look, I feel privileged and lucky that I've had such an incredible journey in my racing career. It's taken me around the world. It's given me a great life and lifestyle. Met a lot of incredible people. I've lived a sporting life that most and longevity that most people could only dream. Yeah, there's been ups and downs, but that's part of the journey. And I feel pretty fortunate.
Yeah, bloody good, mate. I think I said this on radio the other day, speaking to David Short, a good mate and a good man, and I said, I think in terms of Western Australian sport, I wouldn't have too many alongside of you as one of the greats of sport, mate. So congratulations on a great career.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
It's been a very good chat. Now, you're not done just yet. We are almost finished, but you've heard enough from Dan and I.
We're on the home straight.
Social media, not social media, social media. This is from the people, for the people, for you. Questions from our audience that have come in over the last couple of days. Might add, there's some good ones in here. So if you're ready for it, I've got a few more to finish off on. We didn't touch on this one. Harrison Huntley.
What's your diet like as a jockey to keep your weight down?
Okay, so to simplify mine, I call it 5 and 2. Like 5 days of the week, I'm pretty conscientious about my diet. A couple of days a week, I like to relax and live normal, but more high protein, low carb, a lot of fruit and veg. I try to have brown rice a couple of times a week. I think it's a good superfood and good for your metabolism. And and sort of when I'm strict on it, that'll be brown rice and veggies, and whether it be beef, chicken, fish, a lot of fish. I always generally have fish the night before a race. It's pretty light and get something in my stomach. My morning ritual, is usually a cup of coffee and piece of fruit toast, just to get me going for the day. And that's about all I'll have till I have a feed that night.
You ever have like KFC or anything?
I might lash out occasionally. I love a steak and when I was younger, maybe, but probably not as I've got older. I don't have quite as much junk food,
Is there any big weight cuts? I've spoken to a few UFC fighters across our little time doing this. Are you walking around at, I don't know, 60 kilos and racing at 50? Or?
Yeah, as my weight sits, I'd say around 57, give or take a kilo. And then I'll try and ride around 55. I can get down to 54 if I have to. But yeah, that's kind of where I sit.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's good you're not stripping too much back.
Yeah.
Taz_Kai.
Why didn't you pick the Perth Cup as your last race meeting?
Oh, look, I just felt I was actually thinking about retiring last winter. I nearly had enough now. I was sort of talked into going one more spring and finishing off in Perth, which I felt was good. Get me towards the end of the year. My body's sort of just been hanging in there, I must say, the last few months. I just felt the Pinnacles Perth Carnival was good timing. I could have a holiday leading into Christmas and New Year's with my family, and the Perth Cup's sort of just out on its own a little bit. And then I start a new role next year with Ladbrokes, which I could get into that next year.
Unreal. Very good. Zach_Bird.
They ask, what's the background to the Ollie Roar?
What's the Ollie Roar?
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, so that's developed over sort of more recent years. I got found out during COVID with that, actually, because there was no crowds at the races, and all they could hear through the microphones was me yelling at the horse. And so horses are obviously animals, and when you yell at them, you get a response. And when the horse is probably running a little bit on empty towards the end of a race, you start roaring at them, you can get that last little bit out of them in a close finish. It can often mean the difference between winning and losing. And
like a lion's roar, or are you just yelling words at it?
Yeah, yell whatever you like. Yeah.
Great.
Have you ever? Do you feel like the roar's got something over the line?
Oh, definitely.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, when the other jockeys hear me coming, they know they're in trouble. Don't worry. And a few others have started yelling too. Don't worry.
That's very good. I'm gonna have to find some footage of that, Nicholas. That's unreal. Benjamin Fox.
If you could race one race all over again, what would it be?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Good question, Ben.
One race all over again. I'd never won a Doncaster in Sydney, a big race, the Doncaster in Sydney, big mile. It was one Casino Prince that should have won that race. That was probably one that just jumps out at me, yeah.
No roar on that one?
No, I just found traffic and I couldn't get out, and I was going that well. I got sucked up into a gap that I probably shouldn't have gone. I should have waited and come to the outside, and yeah, he should have won.
Is there many occasions when you don't know if you've won, or like those really
close ones?
Ones?
Yeah, probably 50-50 sometimes. I think if it's a really close one, I say, I think I've lost. So then if I win, I feel good, If you think you've won and you lose, then you feel shit, Yeah.
That's good.
Bushy.
I can't. Oh, here we go. Most winners in a day or a week?
5 in a day many times. And I got beaten on a pimple on another one that would have made it 6. That was a Sandown Classic day. And most in a week? Oh, I couldn't tell you that, but I've ridden 5 on lots of occasions, yeah, and many 4s and 3s and that sort of thing.
By race 6, are you gassed or?
Do you get fatigued?
You do fatigue a little bit late in the day, and there's a lot of night racing in Melbourne now, so you'll often ride, say, Friday night at Moonee Valley. You got to back up on a Saturday, and as you would know, Scully, after a night game or whatever, you can't sleep that well because you're still half wide, so you don't get a lot of sleep, and sleep's your most important thing in recovery. and then you've got to back up again the next day with probably you haven't been eating a lot anyway, so you can get a bit more fatigued backing up the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Not James Lindy.
What are you more nervous for, your first or your last ride?
Wouldn't say really nervous, but probably your first one, because once you get going into the day, you kind of you're rolling into it and that kind of thing. So yeah, probably the first a little bit, if anything. Yep.
B. Walsh Plumbing.
Who is the next Damien Oliver?
Hard to say one, but I'm based in Melbourne, so I'll probably best to judge on the jockeys riding in Melbourne at the moment. Mark Zara and Damien Lane are going great. Blake Shin's going really good too. Jamie Carr, she's a star as well. So, and there's many other jockeys there that probably aren't quite getting the opportunities, but got probably as much talent as well. But they're probably ones that jump out at me at the moment.
BPI 15.
The one horse you didn't get to ride, but you wish you did.
Ooh, that's a good one. I've probably got to put 2 in that. I reckon in Australia, Australian horses would be Black Caviar and Winks, of course. Yeah, I thought there was a chance getting on Winks one day. Huey Bowman got suspended, and I rang Chris Wells. I said, "I'll come up and ride it," and he was a bit worried about obviously breaking the relationship. And they actually didn't run it; they saved it for another race so Huey could get back. So
right,
yeah, but they would have been 2 great ones to get on.
Bloody yeah, good. That's awesome. You just give them a quick call.
Yeah,
G'day, fellas. I don't know what you're up to. I know what I'm up to. Last couple, Dubster.
Does the horse know if they win?
I don't know. Probably not. They might get a few more carrots, maybe, and that might jolt their memory. Yeah.
Let's finish off on this one from the Eggman.
How does Damien like his eggs?
How do I like my eggs?
Yep.
Oh, Jesus. Probably sunny side up, I would say. Yeah. On
Nice.
toast with a bit of bacon and tomato on the side on a Sunday.
Right.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the story of Damien Oliver, mate. Incredible insight. We appreciate you speaking all things through your journey, mate. And thank you very much for everything you've done for racing and being with us here today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for
That's
coming.
BackChat, brought to you by Fleet Network this year. Swimply, Whippersnapper Whisky, Margaret River Roasting Co, BlueBet, Shelter Brewing Co, Leadable Cameras, Mama Digital. Any more sponsors want to add his name to the list? Hello at backchatpodcast.com.
Actually, can I add one more, please?
Absolutely.
Dennis McInerney. For looking after us with a car while I'm in Perth. If you need a Ford, get out to Dennis, and he's a champion, good old mate from a long time, and if you need a nice Ford, he'll look after you.
Very good. Dennis McInerney, one of the greats, been doing it for a long time. I'm very happy to add him to our list for this sponsorship run. Backchatpodcast.com.au to find all of the stuff there. Hang around patrons for one very last Damien Oliver story.